books that I read in the previous month while beating my face. The theme? Beating my face with the theme. Oh no, you got to be kidding. You say how much you respect women. Buying your meals and paying your bills while you're out here switching positions. Hi guys! Welcome back to episode 3. This should be episode 8, but we all know that I'm basically keeping with series in general. So, this is episode 3, I think, of my Books on a Beat that I started at the beginning of the year. I will leave the playlist linked down below. There's only 2 videos. Again, life happened and I just didn't do these wrap-ups. Books on a Beat is where I wrap up my previous month's reading while I beat my face. And I do try and make my makeup match as much as possible with the theme of my favourite book of the month. So obviously my favourite book of the month will be left to the end of the video. If you'd like to find out what my favourite book of August was, then please keep on watching because we're going to dive into the video. So I sometimes discuss products, I sometimes don't. I'm very unorganised with this, and I'm also out of practice with sit down videos in general, especially ones that are this long. We're going to dive into the eyes first because why not, and I don't have my brushes, so let me just get all my brushes out. So I'm going to do my eyes first because I'm going to go in with black, and there's fallout with black, so I'm going to quickly prime my eyes. You don't need to see this bit, and then I'll be back. So because I have hooded eyelids, I didn't used to do this, but I do set my eye primer, and I'm just using a light colour to do that. I'm going to talk about Into the Crooked Place. So I'll be brief about each one because I've got a few to go through. But this follows a group of 4 people who are not good people. They're all crooks, they've all done bad things, and they live in a place that's not that nice. They live in a place called Scribd, and basically they have to do bad things to get by. But a band of crooks decide to get together to overthrow the biggest bad guy of them all. Along the way there is relationships that form, and it's kind of a reluctant found family. I really was interested in this one because I loved To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo, and that was a 5-star read for me. But unfortunately this one just didn't live up to that kind of standard. I really did like Tavia and Wesley. They were 2 of my favourite ones, and then the other 2 characters were Karam and Saxony. The audiobook I would not recommend because I noticed it but I didn't think of flagging it until Jem mentioned it. This was the podcast book, by the way, for Barely Adulting Podcast. I will leave the details of that podcast linked below if you would like to listen. We have done 3 episodes now, and I'm loving filming with Jem, and we had a special guest on this month as well, which was lots of fun. I was disappointed because the narrator for Karam, for instance, she has kind of, I think it's supposed to be an Indian accent. Each character has a different narrator that narrates their part, which is great. I love a full cast moment. However, in this particular instance, it is very strange because when each POV comes up, when they're doing a line in the other person's voice, it's still in that narrator's accent. So Karam has a very strong Indian accent, but then she's doing a line that Wesley was supposed to say, and she still sounds Indian, which it doesn't make sense to me. If you're gonna do a full cast type situation, you'd utilise the other actors and narrators to read those lines, wouldn't you? That makes more sense. So I'm just blending this out at the moment. Yeah, so that makes more sense to me. I don't fully understand why they didn't do that. It just sort of took me out of the story a little bit. And the story itself was okay. It was a 3-star for me. And initially it was a 4-star, but I think, I also mentioned this in the podcast, I think I gave it a 4-star because I loved To Kill a Kingdom so much. I was worried because the one time I post and tag an author is the one time they reply and say, oh, I hope you like it. And I was like, oh, crap. So I didn't want to disappoint, but obviously I need to be honest with my thoughts. And after discussing it with Chloe and Jem, I did agree that it was more like a 3-star than a 4-star, which isn't bad. I need to get out of this headspace that that's bad, because it's really not. 3 stars means it was good, it wasn't oh my god wow, it wasn't horrible, it was okay. And I do want to read the next, this is gonna look weird for a while, just bear with. This is I do want to read the second book. This is a duology, by the way, and I do want to see how it ends, because the end of book 1 was a lot. So I would like to see how it ends. I don't think Chloe and Jem will be continuing, but I will be finishing the duology at some point. I'm not sure when that will be, but I will be at some point. That's that. Next up we have a 4-star read, which was The Younglings Book 2, Fire and Magic by Helena Craggs. This follows a group of supernatural keepers, and there's Quinn and his gang, and I'm not going to name them all because I'll probably get a name wrong at some point, because I read this at the beginning of the month. But this follows a group of young supernaturals. There's a half demon, there's a witch, there's a vampire, there's a lupus sapien, not a werewolf. I really enjoyed the story. This is a found family vibe. Once again, they all come together and help the mere mortals that can't protect themselves from evil things. The one thing that I didn't particularly gel with in this book were some of the relationships. Developed a little bit too quickly for my liking. And I know that it's YA and it's teenagers, and teenagers tend to, this is very stereotypical of me to say this, but especially in YA books, they tend to fall in love quite quickly. I do get that, but for me, I would have still loved the book if there was no romance in it, do you know what I mean? And I probably would have given it a 5 stars, but, and there was also something that she kept writing, chattered, and I mentioned this in my vlog, but there was just a word that kept being repeated, and it was just a little bit distracting once I noticed it. But overall, it was 4 stars. I would continue the series if she brought more books out in the series. And then I went back and read book 1 in oh no, this is my July. I've just said this is my August wrap up. This is my July. No, it's not. Yeah, it is. We're in September now. Oh my god, what am I doing? I did go back and read book 1 in September, so yes, I really enjoyed that one. Next up we have The Near Witch by V. Schwab. This is V. Schwab's first book that she released, not the first she wrote, I found out, but it's the first that she released. I 100% would not recommend the audiobook for this. Reason being, it's not good. Not good at all. But that didn't detract from my enjoyment of the book, which is unusual because sometimes it does. It follows a girl called Lexi who has had things happen to her in her life recently, and she's grown up with the myth, the legend, that is the Near Witch, and she's grown around stories about magic and things like that, and she doesn't really believe until one day she looks out the window and there's a boy that is outside, seemingly made of shadows or fades into smoke, and then children start going missing because there's this new person in town. It's like, is it the stranger? Is magic really real? Is the Near Witch real, or is it just a story that people were taught, used to tell children to keep them in line. The way that Schwab writes, I love the writing style. The only thing was, you could definitely tell with some of her earlier work, it felt a little bit clunky at times with the writing and the storytelling, but overall it was a really, really good read, and I would highly recommend. Even if you've read Schwab after The Near Witch, I would still go back and read this, just not audio. So I'm just prepping the inside of my eye for some nice pigments. So Near Witch got 4 stars from me. The next thing I read was Lockwood Core books 3 ? This is The Hollow Boy, and I still really enjoyed this one, but it did only get 4 stars. For some reason, I just felt that it was a little bit slower than the other ones. It didn't grip me as much. This follows a group of a group of teens that basically hunt ghosts and dispel them from the human world. I did really enjoy this book, and I did really like being back with Lockwood and Lucy and George. It just didn't feel the same way that the other books used to, like they did before. I'm going to continue with the series. I have all 5 books, I think there's 5. But this one just felt a little bit short for me. However, the ending of this, I'm very curious to see how that story continues. And this is told from Lucy's perspective. So, just to give you a heads up on that as well, in case you're wondering. I do feel in a way that when you hear things just from one perspective, you miss out on the context of how other people feel within certain situations. That's absolutely fine. I still enjoyed this, but Lockwood frustrated me more in this than in the previous 2 books. Next up we have Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. This was very good. This was another 4 star for me. It is YA, and it is a very typical YA. However, what I will say is that this did take twists and turns that I didn't expect. The ending of this is not something I expected, so that does push me to read Unravel the Dusk. Again, this took me a while to read, purely because it's a physical read, and I don't know why there's no audiobooks for this, but it was a time where I was struggling to physically read, and it was just difficult to pick this back up once I put it down. It's not that I wasn't enjoying it. Maybe if I'd have read it from start to finish, I might have given it 5 stars, but it just didn't. Oh no, I'm scrap that. It just didn't give me the 5-star feels, but it's still a very good book. I'm still really glad I've got the special editions of this. So if you want a cute, if you want a nice YA easy read and you're happy with a physical read, then this will be one for you. I did love both characters that we follow throughout the majority of this book, and like I said, it did take turns I didn't expect. I'm definitely going to be picking up Unravel the Dusk. When I'm picking it up, I know not. So I'm just going to go with the next colouring whilst I talk about one of the higher 4 stars that I give. So this is Marauder by L.L. McRae. This book was so good. It had a really cool magic system. There's magical creatures in this. You don't just get dragons. And I love the fact that L.L. McRae loves dragons, because give me all the dragon books. If you've got any dragon book recommendations, please feel free to swing them my way. I think there's dragons, I know there's dragons in her current series as well, that starts with the Iron Crown as the first book, and the Citron Key is the novella, because that's called the Dragon Spirit series, if I remember rightly. So they have dragons in the new one as well. But this has sky pirates, and they travel around on an airship, a sky pirate airship, which I just absolutely adore so much. So this follows Marauder, obviously, as per the name of the book, and it follows her and her sister at the beginning. Some things happened, and Marauder gets imprisoned. Her sister frees her, and then they meet other characters along the way while they're trying to escape the town, city that has gone to crap and starts burning, literally, when a dragon attacks. So I really loved all the characters in this. My favourite one of all, for me, obviously Marauder, but I really did like Amara as well. She's the sky pirate, and it's her ship that they travel on. She's just so sassy, and she's one of those characters that is very much, I'm an independent woman and I don't need anybody's help and I'm okay by myself, but you know that she's just a big softie inside, really, and it's just because she's never really had any friends that she can rely on, so she's just a bit of a stickler at times. And she is very judgmental about one of the characters. He's called Sapora. But yeah, I don't think I've ever read anything with characters like this before. Not saying that there's not that kind of book out there. I really do like the species that she introduces in the book. The next book in the series is called Palom, and again, I say I love all these characters, and Marauder and Amara are my favourites, but it is going to be really nice to follow Palom, because we did get a glimpse of him in the first book, but we don't get to know very much about him and his full backstory. So I'm excited to find that out in book 2. I've already read that with Catherine and Becca. I think we are reading the next books as well, so if we are, I will keep you updated on that one. But that was a very high 4 stars, and she has a rewritten version that she's just released, and I will be ordering that, and I will be seeing how the re-released version differs from the old version, because it's an extra 100 pages plus bonus scenes, I think she mentioned in a Instagram post. I'll leave her links down below anyway. You can buy off her website, and if you buy off her website, she also signs the books for you as well, which I think is great. And speaking of another indie author, I finally finished Cold from the North by D.W. Ross. This follows Ogulf Harlesbane, who lives in a nice cozy little town, and it's suddenly invaded by these dark beings that are following a dark lord who is trying to claim all the power, as it does. It's political fantasy, it's high fantasy. I just loved this so much, and I love this edition. I can't wait to get the other editions, like the other books, because I want to see what's under the dust jacket, because under this one is that. How cool is that? I love that. And this is has a signed book plate in it as well. But this it doesn't have a lot of magic in, but it has a light magic system, and I really enjoy this magic that we find out about in this book. There's one character, I think he's called Padan, I want to say, or Pandan. He's an arse. He's not a nice person at all. It's a testament to the author that he can write a really dislikable character that doesn't make me dislike the book. It really annoys me when I dislike a character but it's not well written, so I end up not liking the book and not being able to like continue with it. Like, that's so frustrating. But D.W. Ross really writes assholes well. He writes bad characters well. There's Ogulf and Melkin who are best friends, and we meet Ogulf's dad as well. It's just a journey of them trying to find this person that's supposed to be the key to stopping this dark lord taking over. And once again, I really enjoyed it. What I will say about this is you can tell it's his debut, and that's not a bad thing, but because as the book goes on, you can tell that he was getting more confident with his writing, and you can tell that it was just, it sounds really weird the way I say this, but you can, the massive growth between the beginning and the end of this book. I'm just looking forward to reading the rest of the series in order just to see how he grows as an author throughout the rest of his books. I just think it's great. Okay, so the 5-star reads are in no particular order because I can't choose. Clockwork Prince, Clockwork Princess, the second and third book in the Infernal Devices. I read this at the beginning of August and this at the end for the By the Angel Along, hosted by the lovely Becca Powell. I will leave that link below as well. This series slaps. Smashes the Mortal Instruments out of the park. I have mentioned this a couple of times before and I will say again here, I think I gave the Mortal Instruments 5 stars. I'm not saying that Cassie's writing was bad in that. Her storytelling, character development, just everything was elevated in this series. I think I gave the Mortal Instruments a higher rating for nostalgic reasons mostly, because I read this series and I can't believe with this series she wrote at the back. She wrote it the same time as she was writing the last books in the Mortal Instruments series, because it seems like it was a totally different time. I'm just going over the colours I put on there before. Sorry, I'm just switching what I'm talking about now. I'm just going over the colours that I laid down before because they seemed a bit dull and I didn't want it to be dull. They're supposed to be representing, I'm not going to tell you what they're supposed to be representing, but not something dull anyway. I was so invested in these characters, and controversial opinion, Jem and Catherine don't agree with me, but Jem and Catherine? Becca and Catherine don't agree with me, but Jem was not my favourite character in this book. It was actually Will. And I will die on this hill that he was the best. Controversial opinion! It is what it is. We can't all like the same characters, can we? Yes, definitely, 100%. It is totally separate from the Mortal Instruments. It won't spoil, and you won't be spoiled for the Mortal Instruments. If you want to skip it, you won't miss out anything. If you don't want to read the Mortal Instruments for whatever reason, but you still want to see if you like any of Cassie Clare's writing, I would read these, because I think you can read these without reading the Mortal Instruments. Next 5 stars is The Intimacy Experiment by Rosie Dannon. Now, this is not as smutty as The Roommate. I'll put it out there straight away, but it definitely is still adult. I loved the character in this. I was following, this follows Naomi, who is a character in the first one, so I do recommend you read them in order, even though it's not technically a series. It follows Naomi, who we meet in the first one. Some people say Ethan's just the same as Josh, and Naomi's just the same as Clara, and the storyline's the same and blah blah. It's not. This is amazing. This is more angsty than the first one, and like I said, it is less smutty. But this follows Naomi after, I think, is it a couple of years after or a year after? It's a few years after, I think, the first book. I've only just read this and I can't remember how many years it is. But she's made a life for herself. She's smart. She's so good. She's such a great protagonist that you want to follow and you root for. And you just want her to find love. So, yeah. And Ethan's a rabbi. So if you know what she did in the first book, she now meets a rabbi. I love this so much. 5 stars. 5 stars all around. The next one is Given. This is such a cute manga. I am absolutely in love with this series, and I've only read the first bloody book. This basically just follows a group of boys who are in a band. There's a male-male romance, or there seemingly is gonna be a male-male romance that develops, question mark. I haven't read that far yet. It feels like it might be a bit of a slow burn, and I think this is more a teen manga than adult. But I absolutely adore all of the characters we have met so far. I would 100% recommend that you go out and get this manga. And if you don't, what are you doing with your life? I told her, it's great. It is bloody brilliant. Go out and get it, buy it, do it, you know you want to. Next we have Empire of Gold. This was the best ending to a series, period, full stop. Fight me, I dare you, try and fight me. I don't know how it's this fucking much. I don't know how, well, so that I've read so far. I'm reading the Poppy War, so at the moment I don't know whether this will beat it, but as I've read so far, this is the best ending to a series. I was invested, and the way that she writes these books is just absolutely amazing. You don't know who to trust, who's a good guy, who's a bad guy, who you need to hate. And every time I messaged Chloe with my thoughts, she was just like, keep reading, just keep reading. And I did, and I finished it. I bloody read this with Hattie. Next up we have these Violin Delights. This was a pick for the 12 books 12 prompts challenge, and it was Chloe's pick for the book. Also the intimacy experiment I picked for a smutty read, because when I went into it I thought it would be a smutty read. It was kind of smutty but not like epically smutty. I went into it thinking it was smutty, so I'm taking it as a win. This is a book that I picked. This is a book that Chloe picked, and oh my god. At first I was like, this is okay, this is a 4-star read, this is good, but then it picked up, shooketh is just a word. I forgot the synopsis to this. I knew it was a kind of Romeo and Juliet retelling with, you know, like the different houses and that kind of thing, but I didn't know. I'm not going to tell you what, if you don't know what the storyline is, I'm not going to tell you. I must have read the synopsis at some point, but I forgot that that was the story. So that bit was very interesting, and at one point I was reading a bit about it, and when it first started going into detail, I was eating. Don't eat while you read this, if you're the kind of person that's easily put off the food. No, because I did, and it was many regrets. But didn't regret reading the book. Top tier read, but a lot more confusing, is Memory of Souls by Jen Lyons. This is part of the It's All About Fantasy book club. This is the first series we're reading, the Chorus of Dragons series, and this was book 3. I will say a lot of this book you did find things out, but then it also threw spanners in the works, because obviously we're just over halfway through a series. It's not going to wrap things up nicely. And again, I will mention this before in my vlogs, but if you don't have a vlog watcher, then I will say it here. It's the kind of book that you probably want to focus on. I can't, because there's so many different threads and people, and especially in this one, there's one overall narrator, but then there's multiple POVs. There's not just like a switch between 1 or 2 POVs like it is in the previous books. But in the previous books, there was only 2, I think there were only 2 switches between POVs, but he did flashbacks. So yeah, it's very confusing, it's very political but also magical, and there's betrayals, I don't know who to trust and who. I seemingly like these kinds of books, morally grey characters you don't know if you're going to trust. It seems to be a thing that is happening, and I'm not mad about it. So here we go, another one for you to dive into. I would highly recommend reading this series. At some point in my life I am going to come back to this and tab on reread, but this is not the kind of book that I can read and tab on a first read. But definitely 100% we'll be coming back to this and just delving more into the world. We are reading House of Always for September, and I don't think I'm ready because it's going to start wrapping things up slowly, isn't it? If you do like political fantasy, dragons, and also I said earlier that I like books with dragons in. I'm also loving how dragons are portrayed differently in each of the types of books that I read. That just Not all dragon books are the same, which is just friggin' amazing. Just a sidebar there, but read it. Read it, you know you want to. So as you can just see, I've put on my eyeliner. And now we're gonna go in and put on some lovely lashes. These are only small lashes. I say small compared to some. So I've just gone in and put one lash on. You can't really tell, they are really small, thin and wispy. They're from Brimani. I'll put my other lash on and then I'm going to give you the second to last book. And now the lashes are on. Were you surprised that this was a 5-star? Were you? Probably not. I absolutely adore this book, this author, this series. It is just, it's very dark. Content warnings, adult, smutty, paranormal, fantasy romance, just grips you. This is long and you would think that it would be boring and there'd be unnecessary things in here. And at one point I did say this could have done with being shorter, but when I think about it, that's just because I was being lazy and I didn't want to read a 700-page book. Everything that happens in here, there's a couple of morally grey characters and I know that I probably shouldn't root for one of them, but I do. If you don't know what this is about, this follows Fortuna. She, in the beginning of the first book, she is trying to find her brother, who's been, at this point, at the beginning of the series, has been missing for 2 years. An enigmatic male approaches her and says, if you marry me, I'll tell you where your brother is. And it goes from there. There's tension, there's LGBTQ plus rep, there's mental health rep, there's lots of different characters. Some you will learn to love, some you will learn to hate, some you don't know how you feel about. But this whole series has just been a wild ride. The book 5 hasn't even got a release date yet, so I will probably be reading these before book 5 comes out. If you're interested in reading the series, please let me know and I can do like a reread with people or read along with people if you would like, but this is just so good. I'm going to go away, do my base, and then I'll come back and do my lips and give you the very last book. Hi guys, I'm back. This is the finished Lurk. This is actually more orange in person. If I have a picture, I will put it here, and I'm obsessed. I'm going to walk around my flat cleaning looking like this today. So, my favourite book of August was Flames of a Mirror by Claire Harmon. This is a debut. This is high fantasy. This was amazing. I had so much fun. I read this chunker in 2 sittings. Would have been 1 had I not have had to go to sleep for work. But this follows a guy called Ig, who is flesh bound to a very evil magnate, and he is one of the most well-known, like most powerful known elementals. The way that you become an elemental is through something called imbibing, which is similar to the banding situation in Spellslinger, but the way that the things that you have to go through to get this is a lot more hardcore. Whereas in Spellslinger, you just spark your bands from being good at magic. You have to take part of an element into you during some kind of ritual in order to then be able to wield that element. And there's 6 stages that you have to go through, and Ig's gone through 5 of these. Just the descriptions of what they went through, and this was done to them as children. It was horrible. But this is dark. I wouldn't say it's grim dark, but it's dark. So just be wary of that. Also, none of these characters are good. None whatsoever. I do have a full review of this that will be going up on my channel shortly. I am so excited for what else is to come from this author. And obviously I tried to do like a flame. It is a lot more blended in person. I hate this camera sometimes. It doesn't pick up the blending. But obviously I wanted to like do this kind of like charcoal burnt situation through to the bright orange on the eyes. I did do it on the lips, but once again this looks more pink than orange. Why? I do not know. This I can't do cameras, okay? I don't know settings and whatnot and what's best for this kind of video. But We move, we vibe. This is a favourite book of the month. And and it was an ARC as well. I seriously think I want the hardcover of this, because it's gonna be stunning. And I'm just so excited to find out. And this world is all subterranean. The world building in this, to say that it's been taken underground, an author that can still give you a vast world, but on a subterranean level, is just amazing. I was not once bored. There are some travelling sequences in this, but it's not travelling without event. So things happen on the way. So you never sat here bored thinking, God, just get to your destination and something happen, please. It's a mixture of sort of, I don't know how to describe it. It's political, it's like war, but it kind of gives me a bit of a questing feel as well. The characters in this are great. Ig is probably my favourite character. I also like Emil. And Emil is a son of one of the children. He's the only son of the magnate Sorello, and we meet Sarah, who's one of his children, and Ephedora, who is the other. And the story is told partly from Ig's perspective, who is also called Jakar. You find out why he's called Ig in this, and then the other perspective is Ephedora, and she's the youngest of the Sorello's children, who was sent away, and finds out that there's something happened back home, and she's going back home to find if she can help it. She's a 15-year-old girl. But as always in these kinds of books, they're aged up, or sometimes she gives the feel that she is a 15-year-old girl, but then in other times I'm thinking she's a warrior. Oh, honestly, the audiobook, what is my voice doing? The audiobook for this is also amazing. 10 out of 10. Do recommend. This got 10s across the board. At no point was I bored. At no point was I underwhelmed by any part of this. The world building, the character development, everything was just top tier. So that is my Books on a Beat wrap up. I will try and condense all this down into a palatable time frame for you guys. If you would like me to review more books, please leave them in the Google form that I'm now going to link in all of my videos. If you would like to see more Books on a Beat wrap-ups, then please also let me know down below. If you would like a normal wrap-up, then let me know and I will stop doing these. But if you do enjoy these, please let me know so I can keep doing them. They do take a lot of time to film and edit. If you're not enjoying them, then I'm just not going to do them and spend my time. It's a good 2 to 3 hours of my time just on filming alone. If you're not enjoying them, I can by all means go back to my old style wrap-ups. But please leave your comments, feedback down below. I would wholeheartedly appreciate it. And until next time, adios!